Hi, my name is Treveon Ellegan. I'm doing my financial analysis on Cisco. Cisco is a food distribution corporation within Houston, Texas. They provide food items, non-food items, services, technology, recipes, culinary items, equipment to restaurants, hotels, healthcare facilities, government institutions, educational institutions, business to business. That's pretty much where their clients come from. The selling of items in bulk. And the food products can range from steak, poultry, dairy, vegan food items, vegetables. They're very diverse. They try to cater to different markets, different segments. Of course, different regions have different tastes and different cultures, and so they're very diverse in that. And that's pretty much why recently they've been doing acquisitions and trying to diversify their products. In management consulting, they actually and since Cisco sells to businesses, they want the business to do well, and they see that, and so in exchange, they provide services for the other businesses as far as management consulting, recipes, point of sale systems, just different insights that they see might make improvements for profits and the decrease in costs. And they do have a technology service called Cake. And I was surprised at that. When I think of food distribution, I just think of food products that you consume once, and it's over like that. Like inventory is like in and out, or the inventory at once is sold off the shelves, then it needs to be replaced again. But they also have long-term items that have a little bit more of costs occurred to them, as far as just equipment and services. Um, For instance, at a restaurant, there might be an interface system there with a tablet, and it's a point system technology called Cake, which works as an interface between the employees and customers. Basically, customer relationship management at the core, just figuring out who the customer is, what the inventory is like, what the volume of the customers is that day, how many employees are on duty. Pretty much just insight for management to make better decisions in their day-to-day operations. And it's important to note that Cisco is a food distribution corporation. They just don't provide product, but when they provide the product, they also take care of the services themselves. They don't employ another corporation to deliver products. You see them on the roads every day. Increase seem like more frequently lately. They have their own supply chain, and their own formula, the way they do things, as far as saving costs and delivering their products. And recently, the corporation has invested in other types of technology, as far as Tesla, to decrease the cost of fuel and increase production. And that'll be on the road in 2019, and that'll help with labor costs, and hopefully they'll see a profit and a decrease in costs. And the corporation's main goal recently is to make acquisitions within the United States and globally. Like recently, they made acquisitions in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Florida, and also made acquisitions in Guam, Hawaii, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, um, overseas, United Kingdom, France, Switzerland, just to build this portfolio and reach a new market segment, and to, of course, they're using funds right now, capital, but they want to get a return on capital at the end of it, and just grow Cisco's name, and not just be number one in the United States, but just be number one globally, and all of the and just be have no competition. And recently in 2013, Cisco and U.S. Foods, a similar distribution corporation, agreed to have a merger where Cisco would buy the corporation for $8.2 billion. Ultimately, it was not finalized because the federal government decided to put an end to it. The Federal Trade Commission said that it was unethical, and said that it would cause a monopoly of the food distribution industry, and it'll be unfair to customers because there'll be an increase in prices and a decrease in quality. as I would think, and that forced Cisco and U.S. Foods to reevaluate their goals and their mission, and to reach that goal a different way. And that's why Cisco Foods has been acquired different corporations and other businesses, and ultimately they're gonna reach the same goal, but just in a different way, in a different route. And U.S. Foods, they're smaller than Cisco Foods. They have approximately 250,000 customers. Their sales were $24 billion of last year. Cisco sales were $55 billion of last year. Similar products. They even have a similar point of sale system for restaurants and management to use to make effective decisions. And yeah, they went public last year, initial public offering. So they've been selling equity, and people have been buying ownership of the corporation. Then board directors acts as a checks and balances of the organization of the company for policies, procedures, goals, the ways that they go about the goals, and that's audit, compensation, corporate governance, nominating, corporate social responsibility, and executive committee. And each member can be a part of more than one committee. Pretty much from that background, they have many of the members are from a specific industry. Maybe one might be from UPS, one might be from an investment firm, one might be from a food distribution corporation, similar or just a similar food corporation. And they all bring their certain skill set to the company and insight. And I think influence. I feel like that's what it seems like the board of directors are at Cisco. Influence, because there's so many noteworthy people here who worked at amazing corporations like Boeing, which was a contract company of NASA at one point, and so just so much influence and leadership in the board of directors. And of course, executive officers is primarily composed of individuals who have worked at Cisco. This follows a trend of people who worked at Cisco, and their specific job title or executive position, they might like maybe 5 years. 5 years ago, they might have the same position, but it might be in a different region, and so it shows that Cisco actually cultivates and grows their executive management, and so when they come to the position, they're ready for it. And it's interesting seeing what different routes they go and how they got there and how long they had their tenure. And the analysis of Cisco liquid ratio that assesses how liquid a corporation is, how the ease at which a corporation can pay its debts. And with a quick ratio, it has a quick ratio of in 2013 of 1.0. It was able to meet its current liabilities. 2014, 0.93. It was not able to. 2015, 0.94, not able to. And then 1.67, 2016, it was able to pay its current liabilities using the quick ratio, of course. In 2017, would have fell short as well. But for Cisco, the current ratio, it would have been able to pay current liabilities for every year. And the greatest was in 2016 when they reached 2.27. And just to look at U.S. Foods, how they compare, in 2013, using the quick ratio, they would not have been able to pay for their current liabilities in 2013, 2014, 16, and 17. But they would have been able to pay for their current liabilities in 2015. Current ratio, the formula for current ratio is current assets divided by current liabilities. And for Cisco, the current ratio was 1.66 in 2013, 2014, 1.53. Of course, they were able to pay for every year. And just a quick analysis, just a comparison. I just like to just see how companies are doing compared to each other. And this shows that Cisco was able to pay had a great current ratio for the past for 2 years, 2013, 2016. And about in 2014, they're virtually the same though. But yeah. And then looking at the Excel, Of course, those ratios, and then the debt ratio has been increasing in Cisco throughout the years. In 2013, it was 79.33, and that is calculated by total liabilities divided by total assets divided times 100 to get the ratio format. And debt to equity. This is U.S. Foods, and so comparing it to Cisco Foods. Yeah, yes, the debt ratio for Cisco increased every year, 2013, 2014, 2015, 16, 17 onward. And so it seemed like it would follow that trend to get greater and greater. And Cisco recently, it, it, it leans on debt to cover his capital, to raise capital, invest money. Its its debt to equity ratio has been increasing over the years, especially from 2016 to 2017. The debt ratio almost doubled, and maybe that's because of the recent acquisitions that they've been having to finance, and you know, strike and make deals with. So maybe, but of course, in the long run, they're doing this debt to equity. They're building debt because they feel like they're going to make a gain in capital and it'll be a great investment in the long run. So I do understand why the corporation is doing that. And then long-term debt to equity. And then I look at the U.S. Foods debt ratio or debt to equity. The corporation used more debt every year for the past 5 years, but recently in 2016 and 2017, it's been decreasing the amount of debt and increasing the amount of equity, possibly because of the public offering that they had in 2016. So they're increasing the amount of stocks that they're increasing the selling the stocks and equity ownership through institutions possibly, and then even individuals. And surprisingly, 80% of the stock and equity owned by Cisco is by institutional owners. And one of the companies is actually on the board of directors of Cisco. And so Cisco has a lot of leverage and leeway into the ownership of who owns their stocks and who owns their equity. So I thought that was very interesting. And return on asset, I feel like that's one of the best ratios to look at. It just shows how, with the assets that a corporation has, how much they make a return on it. And for Cisco, it's been roughly in a good trend. In 2015, it dipped from 2014, but then it's been slowly getting back up to where it needs to be. And so maybe in 2018, 2019, they'll get back to where it was in 2014, 2013. And return on equity was enormous in 2017, which I'm sure stock investors are pretty delighted about because they've been using the equity effectively. I can see. And recently, the corporation increased their dividend payout. Yes, they increased it to 36 cents. Before that, it was 33 cents. And so now they're getting an extra dividend of, then it'll be a dividend payout annually of all the four payments to $1.44. And look at the stock analysis, stock price of Cisco Corporation. It's been having a steady trend for the past year. From last year this time, it was about $54, and now it's currently at $62. And so you see that it's a positive growth in the corporation, and that it is something that investors are looking at. And of course, if I had stock bought last year, I would highly like to see that the stock has made an increase, of that nature.